morning, good evening, wherever you are around the world. Welcome to the safe space between us. I'm your host, Kieran, and I've got my lovely co-host, Kerry, and we've got a brilliant guest today, Perry Power. Perry, how are you today? And thank you for coming on.
I'm doing fantastic. That was choked me up a little bit.
It gets us every time, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure does. I bet.
Yeah,
I'm good though. Appreciate you having me on.
No, I really appreciate you coming on, taking the time in your busy schedule. So thank you. Kerry, how are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. Yeah, lovely sunny day here, so all is good in the world.
Yeah, really hot. So today's all about Perry. We want to get to know Perry a bit more. So Perry, before we get to your story, if you don't mind just introducing yourself a little bit, tell us where you're from, what you do, and then we can start from the beginning about your story, mate.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, I'm Perry. I'm from the UK, originally from London, but I live in Berkshire and Surrey area, which is like half an hour drive from outside of London. I wear a lot of hats now, luckily. But it's all those hats fit under the same umbrella, which is essentially helping survivors of abuse and trauma to break their silence, raising awareness on intrafamilial abuse, so sexual abuse that happens within the family environment, and to empower people from an inspirational / motivational sort of angle.
Love that. Totally love that. And again, me and Kerry has shown me your Instagram and stuff, and I love everything you do and what you're about. So again, thank you for coming on. So before we get to your story, Kerry, is there anything you would like to mention or discuss before we start with Perry's story?
No, not really. I can't leave the floor to Perry and sort of go from there, really. Yeah, see where it takes us.
do like your stripy top, though. You have to let me know where you got it from after.
Oh, this is from Reese.
Lovely.
Yeah, no, I love Reese. Do you know it? R-E.
Yeah.
Reese is banging.
Yeah,
I love it.
I love it, mate. Love it. But yeah, so Reese, take us back. Let's start with your story. So take us back when obviously incidents and things happened and the trauma and the abuse and stuff. So take us back. How much you want to talk about and how deep you want to talk. The floor's yours, mate.
So, with all the hats that I wear, that I've just sort of stated, it is, it's probably safe to assume that I come from that background too. So, and I do. So it was for me, I was 10 years old and, it stopped when I was 11 years old. So it stopped because my stepmom caught it happening. And it was my step-granddad that he had his hand down my trousers. I was on his couch. And I was on his lap, sitting on the couch watching TV. And there's a blanket over us. And that's when he used to sometimes do his business. And my stepmom was sitting on the couch opposite. Everyone was watching TV. He used to do it in the same room as people, And everyone was watching TV. And at the corner of my stepmom's eye, she notices a cigarette fall out of my step-granddad's hand, falls onto the carpet. And she sort of sees it and doesn't take much notice, carries on watching TV. But the moments go by and she's like, why is he not leaning down to pick up the cigarette that's now burning a hole in the carpet? So as she's sort of looking, questioning that, she looks up at us and she obviously goes to speak. But then she sort of watches it and then boom, the hairs on the back of her neck just sort of stand up because she sees a bit of movement that shouldn't really be happening. And then she sort of stands up, leaves the room, goes into the kitchen, just trying to figure out what to do. She then calls me. So then I then leave that environment, go into the kitchen with her. She takes me home. She tells my dad. My dad confronts me. And I then tell him about what my step-granddad was doing. But at that moment in time, I didn't see it as sexual abuse. I didn't see it as grooming. I didn't see it, anything of that nature. I thought it was just a form of love that he was giving to me. That no other family member was given to me, right? So obviously my dad's anger was very, very confusing to me as a child. And then he says to me, right, you're not going to go around there anymore. You're not going to tell your biological mother about what happened. You're not going to tell your friends at school. You're going to keep this here at home between the four walls of this house. I was like, okay, sure. I was like, all right, whatever you want. And then as I get older and I become a teenager, sex starts to become a thing. And sexual abuse starts to become a thing. And then that's when I saw what actually happened. That's when the demons were born, and that's when the whole confronting the past started to happen. I was like, whoa, I don't want any of this, right? Where's the drawers I can shove it in and lock it, right? But it's like each drawer I opened up to put something in to close it was then me putting on a mask. And every drawer I closed was me putting on a new mask. And it kind of got to a point where I wasn't aware of these masks that I was creating for myself. Not in that way. until then, well, June the 1st, 2017, my dad, he had a heart attack, right? He passed away. And
I'm sorry.
that's okay. It's right. He was 48 years old. By that point, he was an alcoholic. He was a diabetic. He had high blood pressure, and he became very, very negative. And my brother sent me an image. I wasn't living at home, and I moved out when I was 19. But my brother, who was living at home, sent me a picture message of an ambulance and a picture message of a paramedic standing next to the family bed, and my dad's lying on the bed. At that moment in time, he looked dead on the bed, right? So I'm like, what is this? So I called him up, and he's like, no, my stepmom took the phone out of his hand. She's like, she shouldn't have sent that to you. There's something to worry about. His blood levels are off, so the paramedics need to take him down to the hospital. I was like, okay, cool. They'll go pick him up. Half an hour later, he doesn't make it to the hospital. He's had a heart attack in the back of the van. And he was 48. And obviously, he was my best mate, and it was a tough time. But what ended up happening now is a few months after that, I was on YouTube, and I was watching an interview by Ellen DeGeneres, and she was interviewing Lewis Howes about his new book, Mask and Masculinity, when it just come out. And she said to him, why did you write that book? And he goes, well, I was abused as a child, and I grew up wearing masks. And I was like, oh, that's what I'm doing. Interesting. Now I was aware of this problem. I'm like, hey, what am I going to do about this problem? What am I going to do about it? Am I going to be quiet about it? That's not in my DNA, right? If there's a problem, I need to solve it. And the only thing I could think of was waiting for my girlfriend at the time to walk home and then just tell her about the abuse and quote unquote break the silence. And that was really where it all started.
Wow. Again, really sorry about your father, especially how close it sounds like you were. So I'm really, really sorry about that, and especially at such a young age. So obviously you've seen that, and I think Kerry can probably relate. I totally relate. Living with, I think mine was 21 years of living with a mask, but people knew, but not going to the police enough for 21 years, keeping a mask on. So when your girlfriend turned up, and did you then break the silence? And then what happened next? What was your next move?
Yeah. So I was sort of looking at my dog, and I was like, Amara, and I was like, right, Amara, this is gonna happen. All right, so this is gonna happen. And then I waited for my ex-girlfriend now, but girlfriend at the time. I waited for her to come home from work, and I said to her, do you want to come out for a walk? Dog walk. So we go out for a walk. Now, I don't remember what I said to her, right? Brene Brown says this a lot, that vulnerability is standing butt naked in public and everyone's just staring at you. That's what it feels like. Yeah. And that's what I felt like. I don't remember what I said, but I remember how it felt. And I told her about being abused. Luckily, and I'll circle back around to why I'm using the word luckily, but luckily, she welcomed me with open arms in that moment, right? And from there, a few months after that, I was then at a business. At the time, I was running a fitness company, and I went to sort of business, like 3-day event retreat thing in England. And it was about, how you had to grow your business type of thing. And I went there, and on the first day, it was like an intro. There was 7 of us PTs there, and it was like an intro. Introduce yourself. Why are you here? What's your business about? And when it got to me, I didn't even talk about my business. I don't think, I just literally just word vomited, just saying about I was here recently, broke my silence. I was abused as a kid. Just came out of it. And again, I don't remember any of that. I don't remember what I said. Right? That's the second time. Second time of breaking my silence happened in 3 stages. First time I didn't remember it, what I said. Second time didn't remember what I said. But then that was the first day. Then 2 or 3 days later, when it's driving home from the event, I'm driving home. And I'm sure you guys would have experienced this, but when you're hanging around people who are where you want to be, right? Whether that's personal lives or business lives, they are where you want to be. When you're in their sort of zone, they've expanded your bubble, right? They've expanded who you are. You're thinking a little bit differently because you're seeing beyond your own barriers into their world. So yeah. I'm driving home, and I'm still in the bubble that these guys at this retreat had created for me. I'm still in that bubble, and I'm like, right, I want to say my story, but I want to put it out there into the world. I don't want to tell every Tom, Dick, and Harry. I want to say it once and everybody knows. And that's it. And I'm like, I'm driving. I'm like, how do I do this? How do I do this? I'm thinking, right, social media, of course, Facebook. All right, I'm going to do a video. I'm going to put it on Facebook. And then I'm like, okay, when I get home, I'll do it then. I was happy with that. Moments go by. I'm like, bro, you ain't going to do that. Because when you get home, your girlfriend will be like, "Oh, how was the retreat?" And you'll be like, "Oh, let me give you an update. How was your last 3 days?" And then boom, your bubbles now start to shrink already because you walk back into your comfort zone, and all of a sudden, you don't need to do it, dude. You don't need to do it. And I knew it. I was so aware of that. I'm like, right, fine, whatever. I pulled my car over to the left, parked up. Right, dude, you're doing this right now. And I took out my phone. It took me 7 takes. First take, I was crying. Second take, I was crying. Third take, I'm like, what am I doing? And then it got to the point of 7 takes. Like, dude, post it. Posted it onto Facebook. And that right there, that third time breaking the silence, is what started that chain reaction that got me to where I am today. Because that was where people saw it. Then I had the first message of being like, dude, I'm in America. Is one of my American buddies. So, dude, similar thing. And you see me watching your story has just made me realize I'm not alone with this. So thank you. And I was like, whoa, I was sharing that for me. Now you show me that I can actually share this for you and I can share it for others. And then that was like, okay, interesting. And then what ended up happening, which is what really sort of started that snowball of, okay, here's where the purpose is clicked in. I go to my auntie's house, my dad's sister, and she's like, oh, we watched a video. I'm like, okay, yeah. What do you in my head, I'm like, I didn't really think about family watching it. This is embarrassing and awkward. Okay, what do you have to say? And she's like, you weren't the only one that was abused. I said, no, I know my cousin Kelly. Now my cousin, I've always known that she was abused by our step granddad. She'd always told me.
Same person, yeah.
Same person. She'd always told me little bits and bobs, but that was it. Nothing much. We never really had that conversation. And it was, that falls into a stereotypical area of just don't really talk about it, and so when she said to me, you weren't the only one that was abused, I was like, well, no, I know Kelly was. And Kelly's sort of there looking at me. She goes, it wasn't just you and Kelly. And I was like, she goes, it was me and it was your dad. And I remember sitting back and I was like, now it all makes sense. Now it makes sense when my dad became an alcoholic, why he told me to be quiet, why he told me to watch a Spotlight film, right? Why he dies at the age of 48 from a heart attack, and my dad lived and died in silence. And that right there, when I left my auntie's house, I left that house a different man, right? And that man was, okay, nobody's going to go down the same road as my dad just went down. And that's why I've been sharing my story every single day now for 4 or 5 years.
So had he kind of, what was he like sort of growing up? Because obviously he knew what had happened to you from a young age and then obviously didn't speak about it. Was he kind of on that spiral back then, or was it just as time went on and he was kind of processing it, I guess, the fact that it happened to you as well?
Yeah, coping mechanisms. He has always been an on and off alcoholic. It was a bit of a drug taker. But when I say drug taker, I mean like, not like a quiet one in the living room at 12 o'clock at night so we can stay up playing type of thing, right? As a coping mechanism. Nothing harsh, nothing like anything like that. So he has some tendencies growing up, me, watching him, right? I used to fill up the vodka bottles with water and put it back in the alcohol cabinet so my stepmom wouldn't notice that the vodka bottles were missing. So he used to be like that. But outside of that, nothing that was out of the ordinary. My dad was my dad was a Cockney geezer, East End of London. He was a man's man, and he was very, very way over the border of protective, right, over me, because he didn't have that growing up. Because his parents, his mum, which is my nan, his stepdad, which is my step granddad, they were both alcoholics. So my dad grew up in that house of alcoholics who didn't really care where he was when he was. And my dad is like, I'm going to raise you up in the way that I want you to be raised. My dad was very much, that's why I left when I was 19. I was like, I need freedom. Never had freedom growing up, yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to ask as well. So you said earlier that your dad had kind of pulled you away from your mum and obviously had you not seen her for a long time? Is she still someone that's kind of, in your life and she's still a part of your life, or did that kind of change obviously when your dad had found out?
So in that time when it was found out, that was my stepmom that was in the living room that took me out.
Oh, wow.
Right. And then she took me home, obviously still with my dad. My biological mother, she walked out when I was like 4 or 5 years old. Now I used to see her like once a year. Then it went to a couple of times a year, once a month. Now, me and my mom, we're like bedroom mates. She's a G, love her. And she's great. But yeah, my stepmom didn't really know. It was in my dad's domain, on how to parent me, type of man that he was. And yeah.
Yeah, so obviously, when you've left your aunt, and as you said, you come out a different man. So what was your next move? So was it just obviously you've done the video, you've now inspired people to come out, and you've realised, oh my god, my video is inspiring others. So talk to us. What was your next move and the journey from the start with your career now?
Yeah, so it what I started to do there is it's kind of like the foundationals, which I think a lot of people stop doing, and I've been victim to this too. Is like when you start doing something that works, as things start to get a bit more successful, you start doing the basics of what worked, right? And what started to work for me was doing videos. You know, I just did videos like here's me, abuse his child, yes. But the thing is, I never wanted to. There's many people who raise awareness on this subject, and we need these guys. Yeah, this is no shame. We need these guys, and these are the guys that they don't sugarcoat anything. They don't wrap it up in an inspirational and motivational bow. They start hard, they end hard, and it's like, you know, and we need these people because love them, right? But I knew that I couldn't be one of those guys. I needed to be someone who will take that, but then they wrap it up in an inspirational bone and it becomes like a motivational story type of thing, right? And back then, I was like, right, because I'm addicted to stories. I've been a storyteller as a kid. That's the acting part of me. I was like, I need to know how to tell these stories. And I started off doing it, not knowing where it was going to lead, knowing that I wanted to do it full time, but not knowing where the money was going to come, so that by that point, I then left my business. I had a fitness mentorship business, it was doing pretty well. And I was like, dude, to my old business partner, I was like, keep it. So I don't want it. He goes, what are you going to do for money? I said, no idea. Right. But I need to put something down in order to pick something up. And that year, funnily enough, is like a traditional Hollywood story cycle where they start to win and then boom, something happens where they crash and then they got to rebuild themselves back up again. When that happened, I crashed because for a whole year, I lacked purpose. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I became very, very suicidal. My dog got sick. I had to put her down. Worst day of my entire life. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do here. And that is where then the book came. So I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write a book. I'm just going to do it. What else I got to do? I'm not doing anything else, right? So let me write a book. And then I wrote the book in 30 days. And I was like, right. Well, I'm not going to publish this. I was like, this is going to sit in my Google Drive folder. So I'm not going to publish this because why? Because of insecurities. What are people going to say? What are, the family of my step granddad? I stopped seeing my nan. I stopped going to that house when I was 11. I'd met his sibling, his children, my step granddad's children. I was too young to remember. So as far as I'm concerned, never met them before. But I knew they existed. So I was like, right, if I put my book out there, but if I can't do something half-assed. If I put my book out there, I'm going to go all in. And you best believe it's going to be on their radar, my story. And then I was like, now I've got some fears. They're going to sue me for defamation because there's no proof. He didn't get done for it because he died a couple of years after it stopped from a heart attack. So, and then I sat on it for a year. But then, so once I wrote it, in that time was sitting on it for a year, I then launched a charity in America. We rescue kids. So we give free mental health care to child survivors of sexual abuse. That's what that is. And then I started to do more and more video content, more reels. Things started to go viral. My audience started to grow. And then a year later from me writing a book, I woke up one day and I was filled with the same fears that I had the year before. And that showed me, dude, 5 years will go by. You're still going to have the same fears about this book, no matter what excuses you give yourself. So right now, you're going to force yourself into action. The same time as you drive in the car and you did the video, same thing. So what I'd done at that moment in time, I had no money to hire any professionals to help me with the book. So I used Grammarly to edit the book. I went into Canva, done a design. Okay. Then I did some free software called Readsy to format it. No idea what I was doing. Went onto Amazon, published it. And then boom, it hit #1 in 2 pretty big categories, sexual abuse category and the mental health category on the US and the UK for Amazon. And then boom, everything happened from that. And I mean, fucking everything happened from that, right? And it's just crazy. And that was the beginning of 2021. And my step granddad's family did reach out to me, funnily enough, right? And I remember seeing that first sentence was like, "Hey Perry, it's blank, blank." My step granddad's name, blank. It's all hiding our identity, but it's a family member. And I remember just putting the phone down. I was like, "Oh, here we go. That's a long message. That's no short. That's no short." And I remember I put it down for a few hours. I was like, all right. And I was like, come on. And I was getting ready. I was like, let's go. I'm going down swinging. Right. And then I read it. And then they basically just said, if I had to summarize it, was you have the support of our family because he abused us all too.
Wow.
And I met up with them in London, and yeah, I got their full support and backing. They've had some, if you can keep X, Y, and Z private type of thing, but outside of that, let everyone know, and that was really interesting and horrible and lovely. And I also found out that have you seen the Spotlight film?
No.
No.
Do you know of it?
No, it's just I should not be watching this.
Write this down now.
Hey guys. Right, it's a Spotlight.
Sorry.
It's a great film. It's done by, I can't remember the production company, but it's God, all the names got in my head. Mainly famous. Jesus. Mark Ruffalo. That's the only one that's coming to my head right now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
He's in it. Lots of very famous, a very, very big cast. It's basically about the Boston Globe, which is a news editorial company in Boston. And they were getting whiffs of child molestation cases in the Catholic Church in Boston in like the early 2000s, but it had actually been going back for ages. But every time something comes up, it gets washed under. And then this Boston Globe news team were basically assigned to it, like, stop it being washed under. Let's blow the lid off of this. And they blew the lid off it. And it was thousands and thousands and thousands of kids just in Boston being molested by priests. And then all over, then obviously that then unlocked the doors for other states in the US. And at the end of the movie, then enlists areas around the world where there's also been reportings within the Catholic Church. One of them is Corkin Island. And then found out after meeting up my step granddad's family that he went to a Catholic boarding school in Corkin Island. And when I researched the school, it got closed very, very randomly one day. And all of the reportings that have come out from rape and molestation with all the kids there is an abundant amount of proof. And that was one of the listings from the Spotlight film. So I found out that that's the environment that my step granddad came from, and it was just interesting to see that generational cycle. And also proud because it ended with me.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah,
it is unbelievable. Like you say, like the fact that there were so many family members as well, obviously from your side and from his. It just goes to show how easy it is for people to not actually reach out and tell anybody, and how everything, like you say, the generations are just shoving it under the carpet. And it goes undetected for so long, doesn't it? And that happens across the board, doesn't it? Unfortunately.
Yeah, because very rarely it's just one person in the family.
Mm.
If you actually think about it, if there's other people there's no reason for the abuser just to abuse one of the siblings.
No.
And from the amount of people that reach out to me, it was way more common for there to be other people in the family to have been abused. So we got, and then I launched a book. Then the US charity. Now I'm on the board of a UK charity. We're currently building a tool, a database that allows victims of sexual abuse and assault to anonymously self-report their abuse. So then it goes into the system. Then we're using AI technology. It creates
Gotta love AI. Love AI, mate.
You have to get with it, or it's gonna be left
behind. I love it.
And then with the AI, it will create, if there's similarities in people's stories, okay, because very rarely it's just one person, right? When there's similarities, and it creates a cluster that then automatically gets sent to the police, and then they'll launch that investigation. So, because then no longer is it just one voice, it's the voice of many. So we're currently working on that. And then two other things is I'm working on a documentary as part of my production company, Powerful Pictures. And I'm working with two other producers with that. And then also Powerful Books, which is my publishing company. And we work with trauma survivors to help them write and sort of publish their own book.
Oh, mate, first of all, you're an inspiring young lad. I'm guessing you said 2017, you was 19, so you're 20, you're 20, 26?
Oh, I'm 28. 29 August. Yeah.
29. How do you fit all this in in such short time? That's amazing.
I outside of what I do, I don't have much of a life.
Bit last, really.
Yeah. And I also had to get good at outsourcing and bringing on a team. And I have lovely people around me that help. And that's the thing, is like when you live a vulnerable life and you put your story out there, you best believe people are going to stand by your side and support you.
Yeah. And again, like I say, very inspiring, very you're going to inspire a lot of people out there, especially to turn it around to what you're doing now. And with all the stuff you lined up, credit to your mate and your family and your mum. Everyone should be, I'm sure, is very proud of you. Um,
There you are.
Oh God! But yeah, just wanted to talk about a few things what you got lined up then. So obviously, safe space between us. We've been going 9 weeks yesterday, so we're a podcast talk about safe space. Yeah, you similar mission. We want to break the stigma, break the silence, and this is how our little team is met over talking about our traumas and stuff like that. So, what is your book? What talk to us what your writing and your book contains and how you support people with trauma with your book.
The program, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we it's funny because it came about when I had a vision for, I was like, right, how can I make that inner child happy of acting and the inner child of the heart acting and the business of the head, and how can I bring them two together? And I was like, right, that's the production company, Powerful Pictures. And my vision for that is to have something that only tells true films. That's all we're known for, true movies. I was like, okay, how can I get there? And then I was like, right, makes sense. If I start helping people writing their own books, each book is going to be a true story. And then down the line, just take each book and turn that into a movie. So that's like the bigger scope vision. Now, if we come and dial it in with what we have, most production companies, most publishing companies are working in a way where you've already written pretty much a good thing of your book, and you dish it to them, right? And you pitch it. Very rarely do they help you from the beginning to write the book. And sorry, if you hear it, can you hear a dog?
Yeah. It's
right.
fine. I've got one sitting behind me, so that's right.
I said to my girlfriend, "It's like, right, Leo, that's the dog's name." I said, "Leo, I'm on a podcast from 4 p.m. I said, if he barks, you gotta make him be quiet." And she goes, "You really think that's gonna work?" I said, "No, but it makes me feel better if I
feel better knowing it."
Yeah. So with the book, yeah. So we work with trauma survivors only, and we're run by trauma survivors. You know, me, I'm one of them. Emma, our editor, she was abused herself, her kids too, and she edits the books, and that's really powerful. We work as a coaching program as well as your traditional publishing company. So somebody would come in, right, and they would go through. We have a powerful story framework, which essentially is, right, before you start writing the book, we're going to lay out the foundations. We're going to go through your story. We're going to figure what your story is. Let go of the book. Forget about it for now, right? We're going to, because many people come to me, right, I want to write a book. Don't know where to start. Okay. And I'm like, I've been on this planet for 36 years. What traumas do I talk about? How much? I don't want to whine. You know, I don't want to come across in this way. And do I include family names? Why not? And a lot of the times when you try to figure out the answers to all those questions, 5 years have gone down the road. You haven't started writing the book, right? So it's like, well, no, forget all those questions. Start writing right this very second, okay? Because those questions get answered automatically like 2 months in. And so when you go through the framework, we figure out what your story is, we figure out what the message is, and then we work out what the book structure is. Then you start writing. Once you finish writing that draft, then we edit the book, we design it, we format it, we publish it for you. I help you with showing you how to market your story. Like with my audience and my viral videos, I show you how to do the same. And then along all of that is our community, which is one of the massive things I'm the most protective of. You know, we currently got 25, might actually be 26 now, survivors inside the program. We've got 2 calls a week every Monday and Wednesday. There's a big group call starting from the beginning of July. We are going to be having bi-weekly workshops with like lawyers, you know, attorneys, trauma healers, inner child therapists, all these different types of people coming in, you know, to then deliver a training for all the people inside the program. So it works as a healing journey as well. And yeah, you know, actually one of our clients, look how cool is this? Shout It Beautifully, right? So this is Bonnie. She literally, her book launched yesterday. No, yeah, a day before yesterday. So
well done, Bonnie.
Yeah. Proud of her. You know, her story is just, you know, she grew up being abused by her dad. Her dad used her as a prodding device. He raped her. He done everything you can imagine. And they would drive her down to the local bar, keep her in a truck, go into the bar whilst guys give her money, and they go out and rape her in the back of the truck. You know, whilst the dad pockets cash. That was the upbringing of her. And now you look at her now, she's shouting it beautifully. She's written a book. You know, that's why I do what I do. I'm like, these guys inspire the living shit out of me. I'm like, beautiful people.
This is it, isn't it? I mean, sometimes, you know, when you're in your darkest moments, you feel like there's no way out, don't you? And obviously to see people like that and yourself that have just gone out there and they're telling their story, and just to give the inspiration to people that are feeling quite low at the moment and just think, actually, well, if they can do it, then I can, you know, just to give them that inspiration. And yeah, it just sends tingles down me, really, to think that, you know, you've got all these people out there and they're doing this and putting themselves on the line. It takes a lot of courage, doesn't it, to be able to come out and talk about stuff, especially as you were saying about family, friends, all of that sort of stuff, and what they're going to think of me and all of that. You know, there's quite a lot of sort of factors, isn't there, that does prevent a lot of people from going out there and doing this very thing. So I think it's just wonderful.
Well, I just want. Can I just add something to Carrie's message? So obviously you had a chat the other day. I cannot tell you how excited Carrie was. As soon as she got off the call with you, she was on the phone to me. She was. I thought, well, calm down, talk, breathe. What's going on? But no, this sounds amazing, and we talk more after the live because I'm intrigued. I'm very intrigued about it. So with the books side, put that aside. Talk to us the other side of your career. How you support people out there, because I know you've got your loads of different hats on. So talk to us about the other hats.
Yeah, so in regards to survivors, I put the best way I can explain it, which is what we've had to communicate inside the documentary, is it's almost like I treat myself as like a one-man charity, which is weird. It took me a long while to sort of realize that, and the reason why I say that is because I just have to get my girlfriend on the podcast. She could probably give you more of an answer. She's like, doesn't spend time with me, he spends time in his DM, right? Because I spend so many hours a day in my DMs, going back and forth with survivors without that, you know.
Didn't reply to me.
Hey,
I did. I messaged you about the book 2 weeks ago, I think.
Oh no, Facebook.
On Insta.
Oh.
It's all right. It's a story of my life. It's fine. It's a story of my life.
What I will say is that there is still a list. No.
I bet you get loads. I bet you get loads.
There is a, yeah. I mean, the one thing that I'm not good at, and the reason why is because a lot of people with growing audiences, they hire someone to log into their account and reply back to people's DMs, you know, in whatever way that looks. I've had so many people who are on my side of the fence, but like, you should do that. And I get it. I really do, right? Because with some people, like, oh, you know, great story, thank you, blah, blah, blah. And all it takes is someone just to reply back. That could help them if they believe it's Perry. And that might be okay. But when I'm standing, I'm like, that's not okay.
That's exactly. I'm saying to do.
I'd rather have, which I do on Instagram and Facebook. TikTok, I don't really use for DMs. But on Instagram and Facebook, I do have longer on Instagram than it is Facebook, a long line of outbox DMs I haven't gotten to yet. And I'm very aware of it. And sometimes I beat myself up. I'm like, bro, come on, man. Because you don't know what lies in those DMs yet. But I'm like, I'd rather have a long list than having a team pretending that they're Perry Power to go through the DMs. Yeah. And that's a very interesting situation that I found myself in like a year or two ago, you know?
No, I totally agree with that. It's more personal.
You just never sleep, that's all.
Yeah, anyway, like go for it. Yeah, I know. But like, it's going back and forth with people in the DMs who, you know, mums. My daughter just told me that, and this is crazy, but I get this a lot. But when mums reach out to me and they say that my daughter has just told me that her father, as in her ex, right, or now as an ex, because she just found out, has been sexually abusing her for a number of years, and my daughter's just come to me. You know, what should I do? The amount of stories like that and similar to that, just swap the genders and swap the family titles, is just every day, literally every day. You know, I get between low end 10, high end, if a video goes viral, 50 DMs a day, new ones, right? And it's just crazy.
Still ain't replied to me though. After 50 messages, I've messaged him about 50 times. No, I haven't.
50 follow-ups. I'm gonna go in there after. Where is he?
Researching you now.
100 DMs. Hello,
Perry. Quick one. How do you cope with? So obviously, we have a lot of guests weekly on here, and I still get a bit emotional. I have to clear my head after certain podcasts and go for a walk on my own. How do you cope with hearing certain stories, like you just said that a lady has said that her daughter's been abused, sexually abused, and that? How does your head cope, and what is your tools of coping? Because you've got to look after yourself as well. So, talk to us how your self care is.
I had to get comfortable with giving this answer, right? Because I get asked this question a bit. And I remember the very first few times I got asked this question, I didn't know what answer to give because I couldn't necessarily relate, right? Like when I read these stories, I don't get down, never do, right? And obviously I went through a period like, well, why? Like, why do you not get down? And I don't know is the answer to your question, Kieran. I don't know why. I don't know how it doesn't get me down. I don't have any things that I do to bring me up or lean on people. But the only thing I am going to do is rather try to find an answer as to why I don't, is be like, well, I'm grateful because it allows me to continue every single day being there in these horrific stories and not allowing it to penetrate my soul and make me think that the world is doom and gloom. It penetrates me to a certain point where I'm like, fuck me, I feel for you. How can we solve this?
Yeah.
Right? Solution, how can we solve this? Rather than fuck, I feel for you, putting the phone down, going to my girlfriend. Because if it was like that, there's no way I'd be where I am now or helping as many people as I am now. There's no way. I would either have quit or set up so many barriers where people just couldn't DM me anymore.
So what would you say to people that obviously you were sort of lucky in as much that people were very receptive to what you were doing and you coming out with your story and all of that sort of stuff? What would your advice be, do you think, for people that maybe haven't had that reception where it's been sort of negative and all of that sort of stuff? Like what would you say to them as their way to kind of get their heads around that side of it?
Short answer, fuck them.
Yes.
Answer, right?
High five. That's all the answer.
Yeah, that's it. Full stop.
That's it.
Right?
Fuck them. My kind of guy, this guy.
I have a fuck 'em and a fuck it attitude with a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
And it serves me really, really well. The fuck it's come in when it comes to getting stuff done. Just like, fuck it, what's the worst? You know, I'm still going to be live at the end of it. So, you know, and and there's going to be a lot of good that's going to come out of it because a lot of it's our own fears and our own, prejudices. But the longer answer is that when actually this is a good time to circle back to when I originally told my ex-girlfriend and I said, luckily she welcomed me with open arms, right? The reason why I say luckily is because if she didn't welcome me with open arms, that was the very first time I was aware of it. Then the very first time I communicated it to something, right, was to her, to someone else. I can't control her reaction. So if she gave me a negative reaction, I would now have associated my truth with negativity, and that probably would have now put me back into silence for the rest of my life. Because why would I do that again? I've got experience. It wasn't good. I'm not going to do it again. Now, a lot of people found themselves in this sort of bubble right now, unfortunately. So I say, if you like read my book, Breaking the Silence, is don't tell anybody else right now. Your first step isn't to your loved one. I don't care how much you think you trust them. Doesn't matter, right? Because if they don't come from the world of abuse, then you might trust them, but they might have paused for a little bit longer, raise one eyebrow, even if they don't mean to. You'll read it and you would interpret it in a certain way because that's the things that you're seeing the world through right now. Okay.
Yeah.
So instead, break the silence to yourself first in as many different ways as you humanly can. Write a poem, write a song, choreograph a dance piece, do a piece of music, right? Meditate, tell yourself in the mirror. There is an endless amount of ways. All it means is get the story that you've got and express it through something. So verbally is one form of expression. Express it in whatever way. Do it so many times. And then when it comes to step number 14, then you want to tell someone, I'm telling you right now, that version of you in step number 14 were completely different from the version of you in step number 1. Okay, step number 14, you're in a place of power. You don't need validation from that person.
No.
I totally wish I heard you say this a year and a half ago, because for me, when I started telling more people about my thing, the response was the raising eyebrows, the attitude of just man up and stuff like that, which then I become a broken person for about 8 months of cocaine and alcohol and stuff like that. And I wish I listened to what you just said this time a year and a half ago, because that would have massively helped me. So massive. Anyone listening now or later down the line, take that advice from Perry, because I promise you that is the right advice.
Yeah, and also as well, I mean, it's taken me 40 years. Unfortunately, I'm giving away my age a little bit here, but
15.
But it's 15. It's taken me 40 years to actually come out and be at the fuck 'em stage. So so obviously, it doesn't matter when it happens, but it will happen eventually. So I'm with you on that one.
That's it. The whole like fuck 'em is like, many people are like, oh, you know, my mum didn't improve on me telling my story, right? And I'm like, listen, at the end of the day, darling, I don't give a shit if she's your mum, okay? And the reason why you shouldn't either is because if you feel like you should give a shit she's your mum, she should give a shit that you're her daughter.
Exactly.
Thank you. I wish I met this guy 10 years ago.
Right?
He's talking my language.
If you come from a supportive family, then you've got to make sure a supportive family comes from you.
Yeah,
end of story.
Exactly. I mean, that's what I'm like with my kids, because I didn't feel that I was supported, and I haven't been supported when I came out with my story to my family. Whereas with my kids, where I've changed it, you know, the generations and what have you, I've made that difference, and I want, like, my kids know that they can come to me for anything, and I'm very open. They know about it and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, like you say, the buck kind of starts with you, doesn't it? And you know, to break that trend and keep pushing forward, definitely.
Absolutely.
I got to respect you, mate, because this is the kind of, it's not about me, but last year, quickly, I went through a bad time. I tried overdose, blah, 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 blah. And it's because of people, I didn't have that fuck them attitude. Yeah, it's took me to nearly lose my children last year to have that. And now my family circle is a safe space between us and the people on the screen, like Carrie and the people behind me in my household. I don't talk to my mum. I don't talk to my dad. I have disowned. To me, I don't, and I know this might sound harsh, I don't have a mum and dad anymore. Because of, they were more scared. Oh, don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. And the more I was keeping it secret, the more it was fucking my head up. And now I have that fuck them attitude. Fuck them. This is me. This is it. That's it. You are going to save a lot of people. You are going to inspire a lot of people. I take my hat off to you, and I don't do that regularly because I've shaved my head bald. So I take my hat off to you, mate. No, seriously, very inspiring, and I hope we, the safe space between us, can get somewhere close to where you're doing, because that's our goal anyway, to help people as well. But before we near the end, is there anything you want to mention about your story or what you do? Any links, etc., I will post everywhere where people can find you and stuff like that. But anything else you want to, open floor is all you on, Perry.
So I think two things. The first thing is that I never, sometimes it may come across this way, but I never say to not get a therapist, right? I'm friends with many therapists, love them. They're great. Okay. Some of them aren't. Some personal trainers aren't. Some of them are great. It's the same thing everywhere. You should always get a therapist. You should always get professional help. But I don't take that angle because I'm not a professional in that way. I take the angle from, hey, listen, this is your story. Okay. This is your voice. This is your truth. This is your life. You have to take ownership over what's in your control. And if you don't take ownership over your story, then you're not going to take ownership over your life, because they go hand in hand. So many people try to get rid of their story, run away from their story, change their story. Tony Robbins says, change your story, change your life, right? That's great. But in my world, don't change your story. Own the shit out of your story, because then you own your life, and then you're in a place of power. And when you're in that place, there ain't anything holding you back.
Exactly. No, I totally agree with that.
So on the PowerPoint, is that your real name, or is that something that you've added?
No, hey, listen, Power is Irish, comes from my dad's side of the family, from Tipperary. My middle name's William, so it's Perry Willpower for sure. You know, it gets even better. No, but yeah, it's that, and you just remind me as well, I've got a Facebook group called the Power Tribe, and it's for all survivors who have been through whatever, and they want to join a safe space, which, by the way, I love the name of your podcast. They want to join a safe space to share their story and be amongst other survivors. Then the Power Tribe is where it's at. There's currently 4,000, nearly 700 people in there. So there's, you know, a few people in there sharing their stories, and there's always going to be a space for you.
Oh, thank you so much. And again, I believe, and I'm sure Kerry does, that you're going to inspire and save someone and get people talking. And like you say, I believe, don't run away from the shit. Own it. Be proud of it. listen, I've started to believe, thinking, if I didn't go through what I went through, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to Perry Power or Carrie today. So,
Exactly.
again, I'm privileged to have you on, and I can't wait to keep following you and seeing where your journey goes, mate. Very inspiring young lad, man, and I hope a lot of children out there and young adults and adults look up to this guy. He's got a good head and quite intelligent, so credit to you, boy.
Appreciate it, man. You're gonna make me blush, bro. Come on. Right? Appreciate it.
He's got the banter as well. I love it. I love it. Now, before we end, Kerry, is there any last words you want to say to Perry before we go to the questions? There's a few on here.
Yeah, just again, I'm just really appreciative of the fact that you've come on. I know, obviously, when I approached you, it wasn't quite sure because you've got such a large following. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't reply, obviously, because we're quite small and stuff like that. So just want to say thank you very much, obviously, for talking to us and obviously coming on today. As Kieran has said, you're a massive inspiration, and to think what you've achieved over the last few years has been astronomical. So it's given everybody hope that they can obviously get anywhere near to what you're doing and get their story out there. And I look forward to working with you, because I'm definitely gonna get talking to you about the book and stuff. So so I just want to say thank you.
Don't lie. That's because you're sacked because you've got Perry on here late today.
I knew I'd get the
blame. No, I'm joking. And Perry, I just want to echo before we go to the questions. Is again, thank you. With your high following, we've reached out to I've lost count, thousands of people, and just you and maybe one other having the respect to reply to carrying that. Again, thank you so much for that, and because it gives us opportunity to get out there a little bit more. And we're doing a lot of things behind the scenes, and just thank you for that as well. It does mean a lot, that kind of thing. So if there's anything ever we can ever do for you or help, any charity events you need support, or you need people running, or whatever it is you've got, contact us. We'll be there, mate.
Appreciate it. I really do.
Right.
Yeah.
No. Any the questions on here? So we've got people just saying, I've got the same surname as Power. Patricia's put, wow, the support from your family is a huge help. Was that a massive help for you?
I think
I'll put the questions on the screen.
It's put your family's huge help. Yeah, no, it helps, as in that's great. You know, I love that I've had the support of my family throughout this. You know, it's put it this way: if they didn't support me, I'll still be doing it anyway. You know, and that's very obvious. But I'm very grateful that they do support me.
Oh, good luck. Next one. As a born Catholic, I'm ashamed of this, so I'm guessing that was about the church, the priest thing, the priest conversation. I think that popped up when we were there.
Half my family Catholic, you know, and they're not proud either, so I get it.
Yeah. Someone's put, "Wow, you are strong. You're so strong and inspiring." Where's that one? Yeah. Wow, you are so strong and inspiring. Again, another one. What an inspiration. Very well done. I think this is to do with that the USA, the groups, etc. Perry's actually in the UK, guys. So if you missed the beginning, he's actually in the UK. He's actually not too far from London.
If very quickly, with the US based charity is only for US.
For
the UK one with the database, that's only going to be in England until we pass regulations for everywhere else. And then the Facebook group is for
everyone. Okay, and anyone interested, again, I'll post all the links on there. Someone's put, when I hear stories, it's almost as my brain divides in two and my own stuff takes a second place. So that's Patricia. So I think that was when we were talking about, when I asked you the question of how do you cope of your self-care and coping with hearing other people's stories and stuff like that.
Yeah, as in she puts that person with that story at the forefront and focuses on them, and then they come later. Yeah. I get it. Maybe that.
Perry, that is great advice. I've told my family a lot. I'm not sure what bit that was. And
Yeah, I don't know. But if there's details about your story, I'm never going to say what you should and shouldn't tell your family. It comes down to what you think their own reactions are going to be, and also figure out why you want to tell them the details. For example, with people writing the books and the guys in the program, the amount of times I say this is unreal, right? And it's, you don't have to release all the details in the book. My step granddad put his hand down my pants underneath a blanket watching the TV, right? For example, I don't need to say those details if I didn't want to, right? I could say my step granddad abused me for over a year as a child. Boom, that can be it. Because if I still got wounds here that haven't healed yet, and I'm going to go into those details, you best believe that's going to be very, very hard for me to write, because now I'm forcing myself into the deep end that I don't know if I can swim or not. Yeah. Right? So that's that, but that applies again to telling your family. Do you need to tell them all the details? If so, why do you feel like you need to? What are you hoping you're going to achieve out of it? Bearing in mind, you can't control their reactions. So that's all I want to say on that.
Can I just say about that, actually? Because that was a weird thing that I found with my mum, actually, that she wanted to know details. And I found that really bizarre, because for one, I'd kind of, put it to the back of my mind for so many years, to then have to almost tell her because that's what she wanted to hear. I found I couldn't really understand it, to be quite honest with you. It's like, well, I'm telling you what it is. Not what it is, but not details. But I've told you this has happened, and to me that was all I needed to say. And it was just like you saying that as just reminded me the fact that she was very sort of homing in on the details, as opposed to actually just thinking, oh my God, my daughter was abused, and leave it at that. It's strange, isn't it?
It is, and there's so many variables as to why the mother reacts in that way about her own daughter. Is it because she's, is she just being curious? Is that her own defense mechanism? Is that because of the lens that she sees the world through? Is it because, and I'm not saying you specifically here, Carrie, but is it because that person, the mother, was actually also involved in the abuse, or or constructed this abuse to happen behind the scenes like a puppet? Maybe she abused the son, and then watching her little creation abuse the other sibling. You won't believe how much that happens, right? And she's asking, what happened?
Yeah.
Besides all of that, maybe she just doesn't respond well with having conversations around feelings, or their love language or their way of doing it is to ask details, not thinking the damage that she's doing by it.
Yeah.
There's so many variables. Is crazy.
Yeah, it's funny actually you saying that, because one of the things that I think had always been on my mind was whether or not they knew, both my parents. I'm not saying they did, they said they didn't, but it is one of those things that have kind of always played on my mind. And I think, as you said, the reaction to it made me question that more. I'll never get the answer. Obviously, I don't think they would ever say they did know if they did. But
and the thing is, if they have to admit, and I'm not saying, I really hope you're not thinking that I'm insinuating anything.
No,
but just because. But it's like, for them to say, yes, I knew, is, in their world, huge. Because that means that they have to face a reality that they didn't protect you as a parent.
Yeah.
When they knew.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Cool.
Yeah.
No, cool. And I totally agree with that. But again, thank you so much, Perry. And I hope we keep in touch. Well, I don't think I'll get a reply, but I'll try and keep in touch.
I can't make any promises.
But listen, if you're ever in London again, give us a shout. I'm only in London, not too far from Greenwich. So just give us a shout, and I'll be able to. Love to have a meet up, have a tea, whatever, with you, and have a chat. But again, thank you so much for everything. And again, I don't want to give you too much of a big head, but you're a very intelligent guy. You should be proud of you, mate.
My head is too big.
I can't see it. I can't see it, mate. It's not fitting in the screen. No, but on that note, thank you, Carrie.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Perry. And everyone, thank you for watching this be out. I'll keep posting this because I've really enjoyed this one. I've been your host, Kieran, and this has been Safe Space Between Us. Goodbye.